All right, well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Nigel Wilkinson. I am the Master Sommelier that works with Boutinot Wines, alongside Sophie Russell, Bea Pascal, and also Scott White. We look after sort of the fine dining division within Boutinot. Thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon. We've got a fantastic lineup with some amazing wines to try and some lovely, lovely people to tell us all about the properties that they are involved with. Just to give you a quick sort of roll call of what we're doing today, we're going to start off the session with Felipe Muller, who's going to be joining us from Chile. We then go to Piemonte, and Carlo Manera will be talking to us about the estate of Cascinoni. We then drop down and go to Tuscany, and Leonardo Bellaccini is going to be joining us from the San Felice estate. We then go to the Lebanon, and we have Fauzi Issa talking to us about Domaine de Tourelle. We then hopefully go to South Africa. I haven't seen Christo Lariche on this call yet, but hopefully Christo Lariche is going to be joining us from Stellenbosch and also talking to us about the Lariche Cabernet Sauvignon. And then we finish off the tasting with Amanda Lloyd, who's joining us from Portugal. And she will be telling us about the fantastic estate of Crone, and we will also be tasting Collier 2005. Just a very few quick thank yous. Thank you to everybody for being patient with me this afternoon. As you all know, I'm absolutely rubbish with technology, and I really am rubbish with technology. So I know I've filled very, very poorly for the last sort of 5 minutes or so, and it was starting to look like Alan Partridge TV once again. But hopefully it didn't come across that bad as it was, or maybe as I thought it was. Okay, a few other thank yous. Steve IT, Steve Carroll, who's always fantastic with these things and helps me to sort of get through the proceedings. Also, a big thank you to Yvonne and all the customer service team for making sure that everybody's received their samples. So we are ready to go. And I'm going to firstly ask Felipe Muller from Chile, from Tabali Estate, to unmute himself and to turn his video on and tell us all about the fantastic Tabali Estate. Hi, Felipe, how are you?
Hi, Nigel. Fine, thank you. Hi to everyone who's with us today. It's a pleasure to be with you and to talk a little bit about my wines.
Fantastic. Thank you, Felipe. And you're in the middle of harvest at the moment, aren't you?
Exactly. We ended picking the white grapes and Pinot Noirs, and we're heading in, I think, in one more week into the Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah and all the red grapes. So far, the vintage is looking very, very good. Little bit cooler than a normal year. I would say quite similar to 2018, which is good. In Limarí, perfect, no rain as always. In the Central Valley, a little bit in Maipo, Colchagua during the summertime, but I would say that the high-end grapes will really perform in a very good way this year.
Fantastic, excellent, good. And you're a bit of a superstar, aren't you, Felipe? How many times have you won Chilean Winemaker of the Year? Just remind me.
3 times.
3 times Chilean Winemaker of the Year.
There are only a few winemakers in Chile, so it's,
oh, come on, you're very sort of shy, but no, fantastic accolade. And today you're going to be talking to us all about sort of Tabali and a little bit about Limarí Valley. So without further ado, what can you tell us about Tabali, please?
Well, Tabali, it's a quite unique winery, very special in many ways. First of all, because it's located in the Limarí Valley, which is in the north of Chile. It's not in the traditional Central Valley area, which I will talk a little bit later about its characteristics. And the owner of Tabali was one of the pioneers that started producing wine in the area. This appellation is very young. The first plantations were made in the early 90s. Guillermo Luksic, the founder of the winery, bought a property with nothing, planted over it in 1991, and he started making the first plantations of vineyards in 1993. At those days, Chile was just starting to export some wines, so it was mainly for the local production. And this area in the north, which was very well known for table grape, for avocados, for papayas, for different kind of fruits, and pisco, which is the main national spirit, was not known for the wine production. He was a guy that was really passionate about wine, and he planted the first vineyards in the coastal area of Limarí, where there was nothing. I really mean it, nothing over there. So he said, well, he brought some advisors, and they said, Guillermo, if you want to make high quality wines, forget it. You'll never get it from here. If you want more massive wines, yes, of course you can. But anyway, he did it. He started planting, and he started selling the grapes to some local small wineries. And in 2002, he made the first, real commercial trial, and they realized the quality that was there. They didn't know why, but the quality in some grapes, as Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, was really fascinating and very different from other cool climate areas, much better known from Chile as Casablanca, as Lleida Valley, for example, on those days. So he decided to build a winery, and he decided to have a brand, which he named Tabali, which in the native language means house of stone. And he started with Tabali. And I would say in a few years, Tabali started gaining some reputation. And I joined the company by the end of 2006. So my first vintage was 2007. I knew the area. I was coming from another winery before, because I was buying some Chardonnay grapes from Limarí, and I really loved it. So when he offered me the job as the winemaker, it was a big challenge for me, because the area was just starting to get better known, and there were a few wineries established over there. But I said, this guy Guillermo and the family are so passionate about wine. They're so committed into quality that for a winemaker was a really nice thing to hear, because normally Chile tends to go more into volume than quality, and his objective, his vision, his dream was to produce the best ones from Chile, and to put Limarí in the map of the world wine regions, the regions in the world. So for me, it was a big challenge, and I took it, and I've been since then working with them, and I really think I took the best decision I could ever make, because still in the family hands. He was one of the pioneers of the valley, in a, I would say, small, medium scale, with a state-of-the-art winery with all the technology. But finally, we have been able to invest and develop and study all the geology that we have in Limarí, which is amazing and much more diverse than in the rest of Chile. So we've been able to start planting in different parts of the valley, from the coastal area, which is Talinay, which we're going to taste the wine today. But also we have vineyard in Limarí, 1,600 meters above the sea level, in the middle of the Andes mountain range, which is amazing. So we are a smaller company, but very active. Our DNA is trying to look forward, to push the limits, and to try to get the best expression of the terroirs we have. So it's, for a winemaker, I'm also the CEO of the company. So I run it, I make the wines, I have a very good team with me. So we've been able to put this brand in the map and establish a lovely project in the north of Chile.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned you're in the north of Chile. Just for people that don't know where Limarí is, how far north of Santiago are you?
Well, Chile, it's down really at the bottom of almost falling down from South America. And Santiago is in the middle of the country. Santiago, for you, probably you will better know Maipo Valley, which is the most traditional valley for Cabernet Sauvignon. We are located 400 kilometers north from Santiago. In Chile, the northern you go, the drier the climate gets, and you start getting towards the Atacama Desert, which is the driest desert in the world. The southern you go, you get more rain, more humidity, and you start approaching to Patagonia, and so you have a very diverse climate. The country is very long, but very thin at the same time. But it's amazing, because in Chile, before I get into Limarí, we have two natural phenomena that they regulate the climate. One of it is the ocean. The Pacific Ocean here is really very, very cold. In summertime, the temperature of the water could be 12 degrees Celsius. So that's why we have very good seafood, very good fishes, and also the coastal area is quite influenced by the coastal breezes. So it's normally in Chile, even though in Limarí it's a cool climate condition. And on the other side of the country, within 200 kilometers, we have the Andes mountain range. So when you start climbing the Andes, you start getting a cooler climate also. So we have kind of the mountain winds coming from the upper part, going down into the valleys. So I normally say, just to make it funny, it's like we have two natural air conditioning systems in Chile. The ocean on one side and the Andes mountain range on the other. So many times we have bigger variations of climate in between east and west than north and south. That's why today in Chile, Limarí is I would say, is the leading appellation for Chardonnay, but also in down south in Malleco, which is around 1,200 kilometers south. We also have another very interesting region of Chardonnay. And you would say, well, how can this happen? It's because, well, Traiguén is in the south, cool climate, it's more rain. And then as we're in the north, we have the cool climate influence of the Pacific Ocean. So it's quite rare. So that's why we have such diversity in terms of varieties, and which makes Chile very interesting and of course, with a lot to develop in the future.
Fantastic. And you mentioned as well about the unique soil structure. Tell me what makes it so unique?
Well, in Limarí and getting into the region, we have different kind of soils as everywhere. But I would say that the north of Chile is much richer in terms of the diversity. The first thing that makes Limarí different is the climate, especially when you're very near the ocean, which is a cool climate condition, and when you're up in the Andes mountain range, because you get the influence of the mountain winds. We have a cool climate condition, but it's a very dry area. We have average rainfall per year of 80 millimeters, which is nothing, maybe half an hour in London, I don't know. So the healthiness of the grapes is amazing. And we can also grow and have a very good quality of grapes that they normally is tougher to get them grown in a good way. Red grapes, for example. So we have, of course, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, which really enjoy that kind of climate. But we, as it is very dry, we can also grow in a very good way Malbec, Syrah, Cab Franc. As I can wait a little bit before picking, and I don't have any risk of rain during the harvest time. Which is something that doesn't happen in the south. In the south, you have more variations between vintage and vintage because, of course, of botrytis and all the problematic that you get when you get the high humidity or rain during the picking dates. So from that perspective, it's very nice for winemakers, kind of a paradise, because I can work very easily without being picking earlier when the grapes are not ready. But then in the coastal part, we found a geological condition which makes Limarí very different from the rest of Chile. We have the coastal area is probably the only part in Chile where you find limestone in the soil, which for a country with such a long coast, which I think is roughly 5,000 kilometers long, limestone is very rare to find. You find a lot of granite, alluvial, colluvial, metamorphic, but sedimentary kind of soils as limestone, which is chalk, is very rare to find. And in Limarí, you find it under two conditions. The first one, which made Limarí appear from nowhere in the high quality Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Sauvignon Blanc. It's an alluvial soil profile with a high content of calcium carbonate as kind of a white powder. So you have the rounded stone, the rounded gravel from the soil that was brought up from the upper part of the Andes mountain range, and was deposited in the base. But as happened in Maipo, as it happened in Colchagua and other areas, it's a very common type of soil to find in Chile. But when you do when you dig a pit, which is a big hole where you can see the soil profile, the color of the soil is white. You have a white powder which came from the upper part of the Andes, which at one time was the bottom of the ocean, and we have this calcium carbonate, which is the active ingredient of limestone. That made Limarí appear in the early 2000s, with quite strong character and different from the rest. So that was the first thing that showed something special. And then we have another condition, which is the one we're going to taste today, which is Talinay, which is I would say the jewel of the crown, where the soil is a very old marine terrace. That soil was not brought from the upper part of the Andes. It was the bottom of the ocean for millions of years. And because of the earthquakes and the in and out of the ocean, it was brought up, and now it's in the surface. And we have, the rock is limestone. We don't have alluvial. We have only limestone, very fractured. It's a very weathered rock. So fantastic for the roots of the vine to explore the soil profile and get all the complexity, minerality, in a style that you normally don't get from Chile. So we have the cool climate condition, very dry, but then what makes the bigger difference from Limarí, and in this case from Talinay, is a limestone soil that really marks the character of the wine.
And of course, limestone is always perfect for Chardonnay in particular. It's that variety that really does flourish in soils. So we're going to be tasting today the 2019 Talinay Chardonnay. I just want to sort of say to all the participants, in terms of the 2019, we do have a tiny amount of stock of the 2019 in the UK, but we will be receiving in the next week or so the 2020 Talinay Vineyards Chardonnay. And in terms of the 2020, we'll talk about the 2019 a bit, but in terms of the 2020 Chardonnay has just won a whole host of awards with I believe Tim Atkin and also with Decanter magazine. Just tell us briefly about the 2020 vintage Chardonnay, Felipe.
Well, this 2020 vintage was quite rare because in the Central Valley, which is 95% of the wine region in Chile, was a warmer vintage. We have some heat waves during summertime, so normally the picking was earlier than usual. In the case of Talinay, which is 12 kilometers from the Pacific Ocean, we have found that the nearest to the coast you are, the less influence you get from this kind of global warming or climate change, whatever you want to call it. So it's much more stable. And then the limestone soil produces grapes with lower pH, with higher acidity. So even though when we compare Limarí, for example, Casablanca and Lleida, 3 cool climate areas, Limarí and Talinay was the less affected by these heat waves that we had in the summertime in 2020. So the balance is amazing. I will speak generally about my enological concept in this wine, and 2020 was a fantastic vintage, the same as 2019. 2020 is just coming out from the winery. We have just released it, and as you said, Nigel, we got a great review from Tim Atkin and a lovely review from Decanter that will be in the magazine of April, if I'm not wrong. So this is what you have in your glass now. Is a very small production. We produce around 12,000 bottles per year of this specific wine for all the world, for all the markets. So it's very unique and special, and it's the top of the pyramid from us, the top of the portfolio for Chardonnay. It's coming from Talinay, which is, I would say, completely out of the box in terms of Chile, and also from Limarí, because it's this pure limestone soil with a great influence of the ocean. In that area, Limarí is very windy. We have a lot of wind farms being built over there to produce green energy. So the influence of the ocean is really strong. And once the ocean breezes, they get into the continent, the nearest you are to the ocean, the cooler it is. And so the ripening of the grapes is very slow. But also, I would say that this is really marked by the terroir. That type of soil is amazing. And for this wine, I've selected the most chalky slopes. This is a 80-hectare estate, so it's not small. But I've selected the slopes where limestone is almost in the surface, so we get the more minerality, the more tension. As a winemaker, I always say I don't like putting a lot of ingredients. I like working with the best grade possible, and then try to express in the most precise way that specific terroir. In this case, I think Chardonnay really takes that condition from Talinay Vineyard, showing lovely aromas. This is, well, everything is hand picked. Then I do a whole bunch pressing, no sulfur in it, no enzymes. It goes to the tank. I do a small decantation, and then goes to ferment in French oak barrels. All of them are used. I don't use a new barrel with native yeasts. So fermentation is quite long. I'm used to it. So, but in the beginning, I was really afraid of getting stuck fermentations, but I know that it works, and I finally end the fermentation. But I like fermenting in oak and then aging the wine in oak, but without the oak being so present in the wine. I love oak when it's good quality, but as a side dish and not the main thing. And I think that Talinay, from that perspective, has been one of the wines that has changed the perception of Chardonnay, because when you think it from Chardonnay, normally they are more richer, heavier, riper, malolactic. In this case, the wine doesn't have any malolactic at all. I want to show the verticality of that vineyard, that precision, that marine character, showing a different side of the fruit. Normally, in the beginning, it's more austere, but then with the aging in the bottle, shows a lovely character that is unique to Chile. It's really fascinating, and that's more or less how I do it, and what I try to get. Try to put the grapes in the bottle for you and our importers and final consumers to really enjoy that specific terroir.
Fantastic. It's a really excellent example of Chardonnay. So just to recap, this is the 2019 we're all trying today. As I say, we are limited on stock of 2019, but the 2020 will be in soon. So in terms of this particular wine, how long has it spent in oak in total then, Felipe?
Normally it depends on the vintage. If I'm not wrong, this was around 10 months. I try to show a much more fresher side of the fruit. Of course, picking earlier, maintaining, the bunches and protected by the canopy, because over there we have in the north of Chile a lot of sunshine, so you can have sunburn of the skins, which lowers the quality. So we have a very good vigor irrigation strategy in order to protect the bunches naturally with the leaves, to get the best quality fruit. And then the oak aging not so long, and no new oak. I don't like the vanilla aromas. I like the aging of the wine, the microoxygenation you get from the barrel aging. A slightly touch of oak, of course, but not on the front. And to show that freshness, that lovely minerality, that kind of marine thing you get when you drink the wine, and you get that salty characters, like when you dive into the ocean and you get in your lips like, this is salty. I love that, because it makes the wine very, very gastronomic. When you get away from the sweetness in the wine and you get into minerality, you get like it's like a juice of the rock, and that salty mineral thing is lovely, because you can really pair this wine with a lot of different kind of foods, of course, enjoy it on its own. It's a wine that, because of the pH, this is a wine that has a pH of 3.15 naturally and acidity of 7.5. It's amazing. So it makes the wine very, very drinkable, yeah, without losing complexity, but lovely for enjoying and drinking a couple of glasses.
I think it's a fantastic example of Chardonnay. Very pure, very mineral, and it really is a standout wine. A couple of questions that have appeared in the chat box. If you do have a question, please post the question into the chat box, and I will ask each of the people to go through the session. So the first question has come in from David from Panoramic 34, and David's asking, what is the altitude of the winery?
Of this vineyard is 150 meters. So it's almost, this is 12 kilometers from the ocean. It's very low altitude. And the winery is at 250 meters above the sea level. So the winery is like 17 kilometers inland from this specific vineyard.
Okay. And another question from David is asking about the UV light effect. Is it an issue at all in Limeray?
Well, Chile, I think all Chile has a high radiation condition. Of course, there are varieties which are more sensible to it, and the whites, except Viognier, Roussanne, Marsanne, that those are different. But Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Riesling, Semillon, Chenin Blanc, you have to be much more careful. So and the way of is trying to hide the bunches, to have a good, we call it canopy, which is the leaves, the canes with the leaves, to have a natural umbrella protecting the grapes. You see, when you have natural a bunch, facing the direct sun, you're gonna have sunburn. In this case, we get rid of those bunches. We don't pick them, and if the pickers they pick them, we have selection tables where we select bunches in this case before we go into the press, and you have to be careful. It depends on the orientation of the plantation, the exposition of the slope, but it's an issue, I would say, in all Chile, not only in Limeray.
Okay, so Giuseppe's asking about the oak, which we've answered. So hopefully that's been answered.
But shortly, oak treatment is second, third, fourth, and fifth youth French oak barrels from very specific tonnelleries from Burgundy, using Bosch, Fontainebleau, Juppie forest. What I'm looking for is to have the less influence of the oak on the nose and on the flavors, but get the richness, the creaminess that the oak aging gives you. I work in the first 3 months with some batonnage, 2 or 3 times a week, and then I change and I go once a week just to avoid the wine getting oxidized. Steer the lees so they get oxidized and not the wine finally. As I normally like working with lower levels of sulfur during the aging.
A quick question, Paul Robineau from Taiwan is asking the aging capacity for this wine. How long will this wine last for?
The first vintage I have of this wine is 2010, and the wine really ages very, very well. I've been, reformulating my recipe, and I've been moving to pick earlier to have better natural balance in terms of acidity, alcohol acidity, and pH. But this is wine that can age 5, 6, 7 years easily if it's well stored. What I see when the wine is really young, you feel a little bit more fruit. Normally, it's very austere. It's very different from Chile that normally produces very fruity wines. In this case, limestone produces wines with minerality. And once the wine is aging, starts showing more and more that mineral character that I personally love it, because it makes this wine very, very unique and different from the rest.
Fantastic, excellent. Thank you very much, Felipe. Your passion is obvious. I love having this conversation with you, or I love talking to you because your passion always comes through. I really do think the 2019 is absolutely fantastic. I'm so looking forward to trying the 2020 Talonnay Chardonnay in the next week or so, hopefully. This is the wine that's got sort of 96 points from decanter, and I just think it's well, the 2019 is superb. As I say, the 2020, I'm really looking forward to trying. Once again, Felipe, thank you very much. So I realise you're in the middle of harvest. I realise, what time is it at the moment in Chile?
In Chile, it's 12:37.
Okay, so you're in the middle of your day. So thank you once again for
thanks for the invitation and choosing the Tallinai wine, which I think is a really highlight of our portfolio. So I hope you enjoy it, and well, continue with this fantastic tasting. Bye bye. See you. Thanks.
Thank you, Felipe. So if you could turn your video off and kindly mute yourself.
Okay.
And then I'm going to ask Carlo from Cascinone to unmute himself and to turn his video on. Hi, Carlo.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Nigel.
How are you?
Very good. And you?
Excellent. Yeah, very good. Very good. So,
thank you very much for organizing this afternoon tasting.
No, thank you.
I can't remember my last one, so it's good to be here. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Carlo, just tell us, Cascinone, whereabouts are you?
So I am Carlo. I'm a winemaker in charge of look after the wine of the Cascinone Estates. So the Cascinone Estates is located in Piemonte. So we are in the northwest part of Italy, and within Piemonte we are located in the south. Actually, the Cascinone is exactly on the border between two different hilly regions of the south of Piedmont, that is Langhe and Monferrato. So actually, to make you understand easily better, if you look at the maps of the Piemonte, if you look of Turin and Genova, they are the two biggest cities. If you draw a line, actually Cascinone is exactly in the middle between the two. And so, as I said, Cascinone is a premium estate. Actually, is located on the top of the hill. We are around altitude of 350, between 350 and 400 meters above sea level, so quite high for the area. And so we are specialized, obviously, in Barbera, that's the one we will taste later. And as I said, it's a 45 hectare. And within more or less the half of the surface is planted of Barbera grapes. So the history of Cascinone actually start back at the beginning of the 20th century. So around 2025, we had the first notice of the estates. Actually, at the beginning, it used to be much bigger than today. So it used to be 200 hectares in total. And then in the 1950s, it was split in 3 different states. So actually, we get one of them. And then, so actually, it was always a cellar. So actually, it is a quite long history. That's why we still have some vineyard within the Cascinone estate, like the Luce Monaca or the Palazzina. They are still 40, 45 years old vines. So I'm, as I said, that
just in terms of the area, as you mentioned before, you specialize in Barbera.
Yeah.
What makes Barbera so unique from this area?
Yeah, so actually, I think mainly the soil. So the Cascinone, for us, the Monferrato Hill actually are famous for Barbera. They are characterized from a very sandstone soil, quite a lot with sandstone soil and limestone soil. So normally the pH is quite high, and that helps with Barbera to give a very good structure. Normally even too high alcohol, so we have to keep it quite under control. And then also a quite good predisposition to aging. And actually the Cascinone soil, if you maybe in the future will be able again to come back to Italy to see, is a raised bed, raised seabed, soil. So actually quite a lot of fossil. The pH, as I said, is around 8, so quite alkalic. And actually, I would say mainly the soil. And then what's made, I think, the Barbera good from Cascinone actually is also the wind that overnight, so from the afternoon to the morning, mainly in the summer, we have got quite a lot of wind. They actually, for people, can be also quite annoying sometimes. But actually, that one helps to drop the temperature overnight, so that is useful mainly for the color component of the wine. So actually, if you look at our Barbera, yeah, quite deep ruby color, quite dark. Is always good. And then Barbera is, as you know, is very rich in acidic, so in tartaric acid. So the acidity is very high. So having a pH that is quite calcaric helps to keep the acidity, quite low and quite balanced. So I think that is the main reason. Yeah, I don't know if I explain. Yeah.
And how many hectares do you have on the estate?
So the total surface is around 100 hectares, but planted by vineyard is only 45. Only. Actually, it's quite big for Bavaria. Yeah.
And I know you also grow a few international varieties on the Cascinone.
Yes. So as I said, we have half of the surface is Barbera, and then we have some Moscato, some Bracchetto, but also some Chardonnay, Sauvignon, and Merlot. But actually, the focus for the next year is to replant oldest type of vines and type of grapes like Slarina. So actually, we are trying to discover old grapes from Piedmont and from the area. Yeah. So we have a bit of both. So actually, in total, in the States, we do around 7-8 types of different wines. Yeah. Excellent. And on Barbera, as I said, we have 3 different levels. So we have the Crociera, the Rive, and the Dannona, that is the one today we're gonna taste it. So the Crociera is we call it entry level, but actually is a single vineyard of the vines. The vineyard is 25 years old, so it's the youngest. Then we got the Rive, that is a blend between 2 different plots of Barbera. And then the Dannona, that actually is at the moment is the only one that the grapes are not from the States, but comes from another estate that is called Dannona. It actually is my own family estates that we look after. We are located 10 minutes drive from the Cascinone, so not very far. More towards Turin, actually, watching at the Monferrato Hills. But the vinification happens all the Cascinone estate. So we grow the grapes in the Dannona, and then in the harvest time we take the grapes to the Cascinone for the vinification.
And what's the average age of the vines then at the Dannona?
So the Dannona is the oldest, and we have the Dannona vineyard that we use to make the wine is 55 years old vines.
55-year-old vines. Wow.
Yeah. It's 1.2 hectares. In total, we produce every year around between 8 to 9 tons of grapes. So the total production is around between 9 to 10,000 bottles every year. Actually, not every year.
I would imagine, Carlo, I would imagine that sort of 55-year-old Barbera vines are very rare in Piemonte.
Yes, I would say not rare, not few. Yeah. Also, what I always want to be clear that we, in a very old vineyard, you get every year some vines that naturally die, and so we need to keep the vineyard alive, putting new vines. So it's always an average from my perspective. So, but actually the vineyard was planted 55 years old, so it's rare, I would say. Also rare having it certified. So we have a paper that we was planting that year, so it's a good thing, yeah.
Okay.
For us.
Okay. So in terms of the wine that we have in front of us now, which is the
2015.
2015, yes, 2015 vintage. Firstly, could you tell us a little bit about the 2015 vintage in Piemonte?
Yeah. So actually, the vintages was very warm. Not dry, actually. I had a look before the tasting just to be prepared. Actually, we had, I remember, a very dry, a good amount of water, actually, because we had around 800 millimeters of rainfall during the year. But they were split between May, June, and August, actually. So we had a very dry and hot July. And that was the cause that made the harvest very early in September. So we normally pick the grapes to make Barbera around from 20 to 25, 25th of September. in 2015, we picked on the 7th of September, so very, very early. Because of July, actually, that you get, earlier 2 weeks, more or less. So as I said, we 2015, all the vintages, sorry, are hand-picked, so we don't use we do all the sorting in the vineyard. And then we take to the Cascinone for the vinification. And actually, one of the purpose of we have at the Cascinone since the beginning was to find the best way to vinify the Barbera, because actually it could be quite tricky, because at the beginning you always had a lot of color from the skin of Barbera, but actually you can lose it very quickly as well. So the main things to vinify Barbera for us is to have not very long maceration like you have normally with Nebbiolo, for Barolo, or Barbaresco, but actually we do always maximum 10 to 12 days, not more than that, because if not, you start losing the color back on the skin. So we take the grapes in the cellar, we crush it, we start the fermentation, and then after 10, 12 days, not depending from the finish of the alcoholic fermentation, we dry off and we separate the skin from the juice, and then we carry it with the fermentation. Then we do the malolactic in stainless steel, and then as soon as it's finished, we rack twice, and then we put in barriques. Actually, the 2015 will be the last vintages we had the 100% barrique, because then in 2016 we bought 8 new botti of 35 hectoliters. So from the 2016 we will have also a botti component.
Okay, sorry, a quick question that's just come in from Christopher Dellalonde, who's from the Dorchester. Whole bunch. When the wines are picked and processed, whole bunch or individual grapes?
What do you mean?
Whole bunch.
Whole bunch. Sorry, no, whole bunch. No, we crush the grapes. So crush and the stem. Yeah. So we don't do the fermentation with the stem, because we tried also in the past, but the stem, the tannins of the stem of the Barbera are very green, so that actually doesn't help with the fermentation. What I'm doing in the last few years, also working with the University of Turin, actually we are doing quite a lot of tests, also in a more, trying to be not, I would say natural, but to try to reduce the amount of additives into the wine. So actually, instead of using tannins to stabilize the color, we are trying to do some tests of drying Barbera grapes, and trying to enrich the tannins of the grapes, and then add between 10 to 15% of dry grapes to the main cuvée. Actually, we are doing with some Barbera grapes, but also with the new grapes that we planted 2 years ago, that is the Slarina. Actually, I took the bottle just to show you, that is this one. That will be soon in UK as well. Actually, so instead of adding foreign tannins, using the tannins from other grapes that are rich in tannins to stabilize the color. And so that could be an idea, yeah.
Excellent.
But it's not all bunches fermentation, no carbonic maceration.
In terms of the oak regime on this particular wine, then, how long?
For the Nona?
Yes.
For the fermentation, sorry, I had a bad audio.
How long do you use oak in this particular wine?
In this case, it was 20 months in barriques, and then now has been bottled at the beginning of 2018, so now it's 3 years in bottle. Yeah. So actually, then when we taste it, or if you want to taste it now, it's starting to be kind of aged Barbera, so having some flavor that comes from the aging of the bottle, because it's already 3 years, so it's a quite long aging. Yeah, we should be soon pass to the 16 quite soon. Yeah.
Superb. No, it's a lovely expression of Barbera. And the question I sometimes ask: if we were all at Cascinone today with you and we were enjoying this wine, what would you be serving? What food would you be serving with this wine?
So for Barbera, with this wine, we normally, I would say the first thing is is a slow cooked meat with the Barbera as well, so stracotto. But also we like with the pasta. Also, it actually needs like kind of a fat food, like with cream, because the acidity helps to clean it. So also with the duck, for instance, is very nice. But also this wine I particularly love with the dark chocolate. Also is very good. So at the end of the meal, at night or whenever you prefer, you can also keep a glass and then have it with some dark chocolate, or also I very like in autumn, like with chestnuts, like roast chestnuts is also very, very nice.
No, yeah. I really like this wine, and one of the reasons, obviously, sort of why I like this wine is because it's very complex. It's got lots of depth, lots of concentration. I think more often than not, Barbera, and this isn't from the Cascinoni estate, but Barbera can be a little bit thin, can be sort of a little bit neutral, but this is just packed with flavor, packed with sort of, dark fruits.
Dark fruit, yeah, cherries.
It's just a lovely, lovely glass of wine. Let me just quickly see if there's any questions or comments. Remy Coussin from Le Gavroche thinks that this particular wine would be absolutely fantastic with a pork fillet, with a red wine sauce and mushrooms, which I think would be absolutely amazing. Yes, lovely. Okay, Carlo, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Very welcome.
Lovely wine.
Yeah.
It's great to see you again. I haven't seen you in a long, long time, but you're looking well. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much.
With us this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
So if you could kindly mute yourself and turn your video off, brilliant. And then I'm going to ask Leonardo. So Leonardo Ballaccini from San Felice Estate in Tuscany to tune in with us. There you are, brilliant, fantastic. Hi Leonardo.
Hi Nigel.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you.
Excellent, good. So you're in Tuscany, so a little bit further south than Carlo. And tell me, what's the weather like there today?
Well, today is a great, one of the first spring day. That means very cold in the morning. This morning was close to 0, but then during the day it was a sunny day, so it's dry and a beautiful day.
Fantastic.
Really.
Excellent. Now, I've been lucky enough to visit San Felice, but for those people that haven't visited San Felice, could you just tell us a little bit about where you are now and the area and, of course, the estate?
Sure. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity. And actually, where I am, if you can see on the screen, I am in the oldest part of the cellar, built in the 1800s. And you probably also can see some of the barrels close by behind the glass. And this is our tasting room. And I'm in San Felice, and San Felice is an old hamlet that today is a wine resort surrounded by 150 hectares of vineyards in a property that actually is approximately 600 hectares. So we have also 15,000 olive trees, and approximately 50% of the property is just wood. So Chianti is a kind of region, or I would say Tuscany is a kind of region where also, if we are a great wine region, the vineyards are really surrounded by a lot of wood, and this helps a lot the region to be sustainable, because we have a lot of biodiversity, and so is a great, beautiful country just for wine, but also for come to visit us. So you have been lucky, as you said, but let me do a sort of invitation as soon as this crazy moment of COVID is gone. Everybody is welcome here in San Felice because is for sure a magical place. And I can say that because it's almost 40 years that I work here. So it's, if San Felice wasn't so beautiful, I wouldn't stay here for such a long time.
Now, just to give everybody a bit of an idea of the geography, you're in the southern part of the Chianti Classico, is that correct?
Yes, yes. Chianti Classico is the heart of Tuscany. Just south of Florence, north of Siena are the two historical towns of the region. And we are in the south border, actually a few k from Siena, and is actually the warmest part of the appellation. We are at 400 meters above the sea. The vineyards goes in our region from 250 meters up to 600. So we are in the medium range of altitude. And this part of, in Chianti, we have three major soil. We have sandy soil, alluvial, we have sandstone, and we have limestone. So also in our property, we have all those kind of soil. And when I've replanted the vineyards at the beginning of the 90s, we did a sort of zoning to understand where Sangiovese, which is our major grape, could perform better. And I choose mostly the limestone for Sangiovese, which can be such a generous grape if it's planted in a too fertile soil. So I prefer being helped by the limestone to naturally reduce the yield, having a better quality of the grape.
Mm. And in terms of how many hectares you own, because I also know that you own another estate in Brunello, and
yes.
you also have
Campo Giovanni. Yes, but here we have 150 hectares in Chianti, and then we have 22 hectares in Montalcino. And recently, 5 years ago, we also bought a small property in Bolgheri, which is along the coast of Tuscany. So now we have vineyards in the three major appellations of Tuscany. Two of them focus on Sangiovese, the historical appellation based on Sangiovese grape. And the other end, Bolgheri, which is a relatively new appellation, is primarily based on Merlot Cabernet Blanc.
Okay. Now, I know that you've been at the estate, as you say, for 40 years, which is a remarkable achievement. In the fact that you still look as if you're only in your 20s, Leonardo. So, tell us about the 2016 vintage.
Well, the 16 vintage has been a vintage, in terms of quality, a vintage that any winemaker would love, because it's able to put every winemaker, sorry, is able to put together concentration, richness, but also velvety tannins. And in the other end, for our estate, we have on May 9, we have a hailstorm that reduced the yield more than usual. So in terms of quantity, we have not been so lucky, but the result in terms of quality, talking also about our young Chianti Classico 2016 got incredible, remarkable ratings, and Il Grigio Gran Selezione, all our wines really perform very, very well because it's been a great vintage, outstanding vintage, really.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about your winemaking philosophy for the Il Grigio Gran Selezione, please?
Well, sure. Talking about philosophy, first of all, I would like to say that San Felice has a philosophy that is strongly related to our tradition. What I want to mean is that the rules of the appellation says that to produce Chianti Classico, you have to use at least 80% Sangiovese, the local grape, and the 20% is a personal choice of the winemaker. Several producers decide to use international varieties. San Felice, in the other hand, for the wine that belongs to the appellation, decide to use only local indigenous grape. And in particular, for our Il Grigio Gran Selezione, I do a blend of Sangiovese with other 5 indigenous, almost extinct varieties. So it's practically a unique recipe that we can do in San Felice, because we have approximately 2 hectares vineyards where we collected all the ancient varieties together with the university. They risked this huge heritage that is going to be lost in Tuscany, and they came in the middle of 80s to ask for vineyards where to preserve a sort of bank of genetic materials. And from these vineyards, we develop, first of all, the Pugnitello, from which I made also an 100% wine, but also other varieties that I use in this specific blend of the Grigio Gran Selezione. And so this is, I can tell you the name, but I'm sure that mostly of them are unknown, because are unknown also in Tuscany. And but is a blend that I made in one side to maintain the braid of Tuscany, of Chianti in the glass, but at the same time trying to give a more approachable taste also when the wine is relatively young. As you probably know, the Chianti wine, when they are rich and concentrated, can be a little aggressive when they are young. So I've tried to make a wine that is more approachable, but keeping the traditional taste.
Okay, so just for reference, so it's obviously Sangiovese with Pugnitello, and then what are the 3 grape varieties?
We have Ciliegiolo, Malvasia Nera, Abruzco, and Mazzese.
All right. Okay. Wow. Okay. And in terms of this particular wine, now this particular wine is Gran Selezione.
Yes.
Can you just, for people's benefit, just explain what the term Gran Selezione actually means?
Yes, it means which is a new category that we create at the end of 2013, the Chianti Classico Consortium, just to give the opportunity to the producer to showcase the pinnacle of the production of each producer. And I want to emphasize the word producer, because this category can be made only by a state grow grape. So naturally, in each appellation around the world, you can buy grape, you can buy juice and blend. It's totally legal. Well, for the Gran Selezione category, you have to being able to control each step of the production. So you have to own your vineyard and do all the different steps from the grape to the bottling. And it requires a little longer aging compared to the Riserva, can be released after 30 months from the harvest. And we also, I don't know if you remember, any wine that belongs to an appellation, before to be released, have to be submitted to a tasting panel in a blind tasting. And they give you, they allow you to release the wine if the wine is considered okay. So we ask to the panel, once they are going to taste the Gran Selezione category, to be quite strict in terms of selection, because we want to really be sure that any Gran Selezione in the market really represent the Chianti Classico appellation with great outstanding wine. So if there are borderline wine, it's better to declassify in a Riserva category, which is just below Gran Selezione, than a medium quality Gran Selezione.
Okay, now you mentioned there about the oak, and you said that this spends a minimum of 30 months.
Yes.
You know, what oak?
Well, no, not 30 months in oak, is 30 months before releasing.
Okay.
So I do a classic fermentation. That means 20, 25 days of maceration, and at the end we rack the wine. The malolactic fermentation is usually made in stainless steel, and then before the end of the year, usually in December, the wine goes in 500 liters tonneau. Approximately 1/3 new every year. And the wine stay there 20, 22 months. Then at the end, I do the blend. The wine goes in bottle and stay in bottle for other 6 months approximately, and then is ready for releasing. Okay. Sometimes, naturally, the 2017 is already in bottle since a while, so the aging in bottle is often even longer. Okay. Anyway.
Now, this wine is entitled Il Grigio. What is the significance of Il Grigio?
Well, somebody probably is familiar with this little picture or painting, which is on the label, which is the real label of our historical Riserva. Il Grigio Riserva is a strong brand for San Felice since the first vintage was 1968. Is today 100% Sangiovese, made with a fair choice of grape in all over the our properties, and it is a paint made by Titian that represent the father of Titian in armor. So was you know that in Tuscany, in after I would say between the 1300 and the 1500, to control this territory, the Chianti area between Siena and Florence, they did a battle every week almost. So, and the father of Titian seems that he came to help one of the side in a battle. So in 1968, they decide to take this painting just to have a sort of reminiscence of that period.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, good. I love this wine. This is a truly exceptional expression of Chianti. Mike, my first question would be, in terms of how this wine will age, in your opinion, Leonardo, how long can you keep this wine in the cellar for?
Well, easily 25, 30 years. We sometimes we open other Sangiovese. Naturally, the first vintage of this specific label was 2010. So for this wine, we don't have such an experience that can tell us. But naturally, we have the experience of our Sangiovese produced in our vineyards. So I can tell you about the Grigio Riserva, that you can open easily a bottle of the early 90s and is still very, very beautiful. I remember last year we shipped to you some 99 in Grigio. There were few bottles left in the warehouse in a corner, so that and finally we decided to ship. And I remember that was a great wine. It's still a great wine, but then we can talk about our Poggio Rosso, the single vineyards, that is 100% Sangiovese, that is another remarkable wine. So easily 25, 30 years. Also because those kind of wine are made only in the great vintages. We don't do every year. But when the vintage is like 2016, it has a great potential.
Excellent. Oh, lovely, lovely. Superb wine. Would you produce this wine in every vintage?
No, I just mentioned we do only in the great vintage. In some of the vintage we reduce the quantity. Our average quantity is 40,000-50,000 bottles per year. In some vintage we do maybe 20,000, or in some of the vintage we don't produce at all. So it depends from the quality of the grape.
Okay.
That naturally is all our vineyards are managed under a sustainable protocol and with precision viticulture, which is a quite updated technique. And at the harvest, we select not only, we used to do the selection by bunches in the vineyards. Since approximately 10 years, we select by berry at the cellar. So berry by berry, all the grapes of any vineyard is divided in first and second choice according to the ripeness and goes in 2 different tanks according to the quality.
A quick question from Giuseppe from Coq d'Argent, asking particularly about the 2019 vintage. How was the 2019 vintage?
Well, another great vintage. Another great vintage that put together quantity and quality. So wine with a great balance, not overloaded in body and structure, but for sure wine that are load of fruit, so a beautiful nose and a quality of tannins that really silky and already velvety at less than 2 years of the harvest. So beautiful vintage.
Okay, Lorenzo is asking, at what stage do you decide if the wine is either going to be Reserva or Gran Selezione?
Well, first of all, the selection of the grape of the Gran Selezione is made in the vineyards. The Sangiovese for this wine come from from 3 of our vineyards that are the highest, up to 450 meters, and the oldest replanted. Here in San Felice, I don't have very old vineyards because you are probably all young guys, you don't remember, but the Chianti was made with a blend, I mean, in the 70s or early 80s, was made with a blend of Sangiovese with white grapes. And so the vineyards planted in the 60s were vineyards projected to produce more quantity than quality. So I wasn't so happy at the very beginning. So I decided to replant all our 150 hectares in 15 years, approximately 10 hectares per year. And so those vineyards have been planted between 97 and 2000.
Superb. Excellent.
So the selection starts in the vineyards, and then, as I told you, when we receive the grapes, each bunches, each berries goes in one side if it's first choice, the other side if it's second choice, and then the tasting goes ahead till the final blend. I usually start with much more grape, much more wine that potentially can be Gran Selezione, and then each time we taste, we select, and the final blend is decided tasting by barrels. So each barrel is tasted, and we decide the final blend. Then when the wine is blended, it's done. No more choice.
Superb, superb. Leonardo, thank you very much indeed. As I say, fantastic expression of Chianti. And I know sort of San Felice, you know, the range of wines that you produce are absolutely exceptional. Great estate. You are a lovely, lovely person who is, again, so passionate. I love spending time with you because you explain everything so perfectly good. And I can see the passion in the wine. So sincerely, Leonardo, thank you very much indeed for joining us today.
Thank you, Nigel, and thanks everybody for the time and for organizing this tasting with such a big, important group of people. Thanks again.
Thank you, Leonardo. So if you could kindly mute yourself now.
Sure, I will.
And turn your video off.
See you soon.
Bye, thank you. And we're going to invite Fauzi next to join us. Fauzi from Domaine de Tourelle. So Fauzi, are you there?
Hi, hi, Nigel.
How are you? Thank you for waiting. How's things?
No, interesting, very interesting to. I feel that I'm in Italy. You know, so far Italian accent is dominant, which we all love, I think, and we miss. For me, Italy is beautiful vacations, and unfortunately, we are all locked now and attached to the Zoom. You know, but it's good. I mean, thank you, Nigel, for preparing this beautiful, amazing, or well-organized tasting today. Thanks again, and I'm here.
Fantastic, excellent. Thank you, Fauzi. So, Domaine de Tourelle, tell us about the fantastic estate of Domaine de Tourelle.
Well, actually, Domaine de Tourelle, I will give a small word first about Lebanon, because everyone probably knows Italy, Chile, Argentina, but Lebanon probably is something that people will think about. I mean, I'm sure most of you know Lebanon, Musar, who's the good ambassador of Lebanese wines, and probably some other wineries. Domaine de Tourelle is one of the regrowing oldest winery in Lebanon. We are 152 years old winery, and we are among the first commercial wineries in Lebanon. But the wine in Lebanon exists since thousands of years. We all know Phoenicians. They had a beautiful stopover in Lebanon while shipping the grapes from Caucasian area to going to the coastal Mediterranean area, and then crossing to south of Europe and north of Africa, of course. So Lebanon is it has been a beautiful history about the wine business and the wine production and the grapes. Bekaa Valley is I would say the main region for wine production in Lebanon. Bekaa Valley has one of the most beautiful and amazing characteristics for any winemaker dream, you know, because it's a plain, and the plain is on 1,000-meter altitude. So Bekaa Valley is a plain that is surrounded by two parallel mountains that gives freshness to the Bekaa Valley. I will talk a little bit about the technicality of the terroir later on, just to give you a couple of minutes about the Domaine de Tourelle as well. So we are in central Bekaa Valley. It's a family business, 5th generation. I am the winemaker, part of the family, and I enjoy the management and the beautiful daily work with my sisters as well, and another family that shares part of the winery as well. So we are the kids, all in I would say all mostly in the 30s, running the oldest winery in Lebanon, and enjoying the old vines of this beautiful estate. Domaine de Tourelle is mostly known for its very natural way of producing wines using concrete vats that are 80-centimeter depth, built in the 19th century, indigenous yeast since the foundation, minimal intervention. I will talk about it, why mainly minimal intervention, and why it's easy. Again, another beautiful argument for a winemaker to live in Lebanon and in Bekaa Valley. And adding to that, the beautiful altitude and the beautiful addition that gives us a kind of a plus in producing wines in Mediterranean region. So again, Lebanon Bekaa Valley is considered to be a Mediterranean climate with a kind of oceanic tendencies during winter and some tropical during summer. We have a dry cycle. So what does dry cycle means? It means we don't have any drop of rain from May until end of September, beginning of October. So if we have any rain during summer, it means it's the end of the world. Something is going to happen, So I mean, for the joke, I was working in Bordeaux. I mean, in 2005, and I was doing my control in August in Bordeaux, and just 1-2 weeks before starting with the Semillon and the Sauvignon Blanc, and then suddenly a hailstorm happened so I felt that it's the end, it's the last day of the earth. I mean, I was running all over. I mean, because for us we were born in a country where we never witnessed rain during that period. But it doesn't mean that we are tropical. It doesn't mean we are tropical, because in Lebanon it snows a lot, in Bekaa Valley, and it rains normally. I mean, beautiful rains in March. Today it's raining with good average of 12 degrees. I mean, it's perfect now for starting the spring, to give a little bit water reserve to the Bekaa Valley and the soil.
So can I just quickly ask you, Fawzi, so what varietals are particularly suited to the Bekaa Valley?
So I will sound a little bit I mean, dominant in saying that most Bekaa Valley is one of the terroirs that can accept a very wide variety of grapes because of the sun, because of the beautiful precipitation, raw water precipitation, and because of the altitude. So I mean, in my wines you can see native varieties like the Merwah, the Ubaidi, and we can see adopted international varieties like the Senso. I call it adopted because it's adopted to our altitude in Lebanon and to our special terroir that we will talk about it, the wine. You can see a lot of international other varieties like Syrah, Cabernet, Chardonnay, Merlot, and others. But I mean, mainly we have a terroir that is great for ripening, and at the same time great for acidity, because we need acidity in the Mediterranean region, and the high altitude gives you the great acidity and the great crisp wines and beautiful round alcoholic wines.
Fantastic, excellent. So we've got in front of us today the Vilvin Senso.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about this wine.
So when I came back home from France to work with the family, I inherited the terroir that has Senso, that has old Senso, 70-80 years old vines of Senso, bush vines, very low yield, Syrah, Cabernet, and other varieties. So mainly we produce Domaine de Tourelle red wine, that is a blend of, and Nigel, blend of Syrah, Cabernet, Senso, and Carignan. So every time I used to do my blends, I used to taste my 100% Senso made alone in my concrete vat with indigenous yeast and minimal intervention, filtration using thistle, low sulfur during fermentation. I mean, it used to be one of my dream wine, smooth, soft, silky, elegant, good punch of acidity, red fruits, a lot of spices, easier to drink. I mean, you can believe, Nigel, you can believe, but that, and I'll promise you, I'll send you a bottle. That now we are in 18 March. I will send you a bottle of a Senso, harvested and fermented 5 months ago.
Okay.
So 5 months ago, okay? So already beautiful acidity, structured, beautiful tannins, round, silky. So it gave us the let's say the nostalgic way that wines used to be produced in Lebanon back in the 50s, 60s, like that. There was no means in Lebanon of long time aging, you know, and wines can become more expensive and more round. So people used to drink their wines same year of the harvest. And why do we need to make, you know, Cabernet, Syrah, Merlot, Petit Verdot in Bekaa Valley and then age them, you know, for 10 years and then selling them? This is not anymore, you know, the perception of the young generation people. They want to drink something not expensive and drink it now. I don't want to wait anymore. So the Senso gave me this beautiful feeling, you know, from the tanks, just doing the blending. And I said, look, I want to do my 100% Senso in 2014 in Lebanon. And I used to be, I mean, I'm still, you know, a young winemaker. You know, I used to be the youngest winemaker. I used to own the youngest winemaker in Lebanon for 5 years. Now I'm not more young, but at that time, I mean, I decided that I want to go for the risk. A lot of people told me that, you know, the Senso is not probably, is more for the rosé, more for the blend, you know. But I took the adventure. I made the Senso that really created a beautiful revolution for Lebanese wineries today, that everyone thought, again, that we need to go back to the origin taste of Lebanese wines, bringing back the Senso, old vines, 80 years old, bush vines, low yield. I'm talking about 20 hectoliters per hectare, fresh acidity, beautiful color, amazing evolution, you know, amazing evolution, and easier to sell because it's not expensive, you know. It's not. I'm not selling you $70 wines. I'm just selling you the real taste of the terroir and of the soil of Lebanon. If I can just mention a little bit about the characteristics of the soil and the weather. I mean, again, what is the dream of a winemaker? To have a balance in the soil. So what is the balance we have is that we have a gravelous topsoil. I would say gravelous top 10 centimeters. Then we go down with limestone, and then we go down with clay. I mean, this is a perfect topography for a Mediterranean region, because we need ripening because of the topsoil. We need water retention because of the clay, and we have the slopes that gives us beautiful exposure of the grapes. So that's why, I mean, I know that, I mean, we're in front of 56 people, so I can throw a nice joke. I can say that, I mean, you know, probably the creator of this beautiful earth gave us the worst political situation with the worst situation, but he thought a little bit that he needs a little bit of balance, and he threw us a beautiful terroir that gives us great food and great wine, you know. That's it. So we have to be grateful.
So in terms of the winemaking philosophy, then, could you sort of, are you hand harvesting or is it machine harvest?
Yeah, no machines in Lebanon.
No machines in Lebanon. Okay, so everything is hand harvested. And in terms of this particular wine, Vildine, you mentioned how old are the vines?
So most of the vines are between 50 to 70 years old vines. Wow. But we have new plantations because we're expanding, and we are, I mean, you know, expanding and trying more other varieties. But that's it. I mean, it's 60, 70. I mean, the Senso is 70 years old.
Okay, and in terms of the fermentation, is it a natural fermentation, or do you use inoculated yeasts?
I mean, you will laugh if I tell you that. I mean, I don't know anymore how to do inoculum fermentation. I forgot it. You know, it's been like 8-9 years that I lost it. You know, I don't want to do it anymore. Year after year. You know, when I came back from France, I said, I'm gonna, you know, start, because Bekaa Valley, Domaine des Tourelles is always native yeast. But, you know, coming from France, I said, I'm gonna start with some of the souche of the levure of the yeast, 1-2 years, and then I lost it. I said, I love to do the indigenous yeast. It's much more resistant for the wines we produce in the Bekaa Valley. It's much more resistant for the alcohol. It gives us straightforward a beautiful resistant style of wines. Why should I spend money when I don't have money? Why should I spend money on something with no insurance?
Okay, I'm going to just quickly run through a couple of questions that have come in. Paul Robinot from Taiwan again is asking, do you ever dry any of the grapes, or do you sort of allow the wines to sort of dry at all once they've been harvested?
No. I mean, this is post-passerellage, which means, I mean, dryness of the grapes to have sweet wines, or just for normal production. I mean, we don't need. I mean, Bekaa Valley is beautiful. We have beautiful sun. We have 250 sunny days per year, so we don't need to extra dry. We just need a correct. We don't interfere, Nigel. It's just how nature gives us.
Fantastic. Okay. In terms of, there's a question from David from Panoramic asking about sort of, in this particular wine, there is a slight smokiness. Does that come from the senso, or does it come from the soil, or does it come from sort of the winemaking?
So, I mean, smokiness is probably, I mean, kind of evolution of the senso. It gives a bit as well, a bit of metallic feeling, the metallic feeling a little bit, and cherry irony. So yeah, I mean, could be from the senso, but it's not related to the oak, because we don't oak this wine.
Okay, now I was going to say, for me, I get a really good expression of fruit on this particular wine. I get sort of red cherry notes, plus also I get a floral character to this particular one. I think it's it's a very, very dare I say, sort of pretty wine. How long will this wine age for?
Well, I think a senso is lovely when it's young. At the first 3-4 years, it gives you this freshness of the senso, beautiful fruit, red fruit. It's really beautiful sweet fruits. But how long? It's a beautiful question that we have to say how long it will stay on being growing in taste and performing well. But I have in my cellar a 1976 100% senso, and I mean, how much we say 45 years old. It lost a little bit of the fruitiness, but it gained a lot of complexity, leather, and the acidity is still available. So I think it can age 10 to 15 years while having the beautiful freshness of the fruit with a bit of evolution, but it will drop to another style of the wines, but it will never fade. It will never lose the importance of the senso and the style of the acidity we have.
No, it is. I think it's absolutely beautiful. A question from Scott here at Boutinot. How many bottles of the senso do you produce?
We started with 9,000 bottles, and that was in 2014. But today we are gathering more old vines to this bottle and using new vines to the initial blend we produced, the Domaine. So we are reaching around 30,000 bottles.
Okay. So if, a question I asked one of the panelists earlier on was, if I was to hire a plane, grab everybody and bring them over to the Bekaa Valley to come and see you, and you served us this fantastic senso, what food would we be eating?
Well, that's the most beautiful thing I would do, Nigel. If you come, you have to ask your colleagues in Boutinot. They came to Lebanon and they've tasted beautiful food in Lebanon. It's a country that is known mainly for food, for Mediterranean spices, vegetarian dishes. I would go with this wine. I would definitely go with a nice vegetarian eggplant, sizzled with some cumin and Lebanese Mediterranean spices. You don't need to have a lot of structured food, but just sense of, you know, spices, food, Mediterranean style that you can eat. This wine is mainly for, I mean, this is a personal opinion. It goes very well as an aperitif. So a couple of glass before you attack food, and then you go with light lunch. Yeah, someone's saying stop the veggie. I'm not vegetarian at all, but I am a big carnivorous man. But I mean, but I mean, this wine, you need to have something that is light with it, you know, and then that's it.
You know, sort of for me, I really like this one, and I've been saying this a lot today, but I think it's so pretty, and I think it's so fresh, and I understand what you're saying. Sort of, it's, you know, it's not a traditional sort of aperitif, if you like, but you could easily sort of have this slightly chilled in the summer months, and maybe sort of at room temperature in the winter months.
Big time. Yeah, very nice reflection by Christine. It's I mean, you just chill it a little bit. I would definitely do it 12 degrees and enjoy the beautiful chilled, crisp taste of this. And so yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Okay, Remy from Le Gavroche, very famous restaurant in the UK, is suggesting a slow cooked lamb with rosemary and roast potatoes. I'm already starting to feel really, really hungry. I'm sure that would be absolutely fantastic. But I know your estate, and I know sort of the wines that you make, and I can honestly say that every single wine that you have in your portfolio is absolutely precise. I think it's, you know, that they're all very well made, and I'm not just saying that. You know, going up to sort of, you know, the higher quality, you know, the Mac with the base, I think is absolutely fantastic, and the Syrah de Liban as well, you know, that you have, that always score really highly in tastings. And from memory, I think Jancis Robinson was arguably the one person that really got behind this Vielvin Sanso when it first produced it.
I mean, we're getting. I mean, it's the superstar of the winery in the past 2-3 years. I mean, we've got best wine of the month by Jancis Robinson. We've got best 14 Sanso in the world by Decanter Magazine. I mean, without mentioning Tim Atkin, Tom Canavan, Victoria Moore. I mean, we're. I mean, in the press, we're too busy. I mean, with this wine. And but I'm afraid that it's becoming a little bit spoiled, you know.
Super. Fawzi, thank you very much for joining us today. Again, you know, I love spending time with you. I think you're a very honest, and you tell the story as it is, which I really like. A great expression of Sanso. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
What's the time currently in Lebanon?
It's 6:39, and I'm about to start in 15 minutes another tasting with Californian distributors, so it's their time now.
Okay.
So probably I would ask that if possible, if I can escape the tasting.
Of course you can, no problem at all. Go and do whatever you need to do. But thank you very much for joining us.
Nigel, one last word, that we are too proud of Boutinot. We love this beautiful estate. I mean, all the people, the young spirit you all have, it makes us always motivated every day to work with you. It's my probably eighth year working with Boutinot, and I'm discovering that I'm very well embraced with this company, and so we all, I think. And thanks again for your the opportunity to put me with this beautiful crowd, and we'll stay in touch, and hopefully to see you in 2021.
Yes, well, you know, when we're through this and you come to the UK, I will take you to many of these establishments, I promise. So
excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Take care.
Ciao.
All right, so Fawzi's now leaving us. So Fawzi, if you could kindly turn your video off. And we're next going to go to South Africa. And hopefully, Christo Lariche is there. Hi, Christo.
Hi, Nigel. Glad to join you guys, and thank you everybody for joining on this call.
Fantastic, excellent. Now, and also, you're in the middle of harvest at the moment, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I actually was very close to forgetting about the whole Zoom call today. So I got through some frantic phone calls when I finally looked at my telephone. But no, we've actually had quite a hectic day. Our wonderful power supplier has switched off the power twice on us already today. So we've lost about 4 hours of working capacity. And yeah, brought in one of our oldest block of bushvine Cabernet. So it's about a block that I think is now about 36 or 37 years old already. And another block of reserve. So yeah, it's actually been a very, very good day, but just quite hectic. So good way to finish it off with the tasting.
And what time is it currently in South Africa then?
We're going on to about 7 o'clock. So my crusher is still running in the background, and I'm busy ordering in food for my team. So yeah, I'll be feeding them quite soon, and we'll be finishing off the day with a beer, which is quite necessary.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, in terms of the estate was founded by your father, and tell us a little bit about your father and a little bit about Stellenbosch as well, also, please.
Ooh, yeah, okay. I'm going to try and knuckle that down into a shorter piece because I can keep going for days and days and days on this topic. So yeah, my dad started the business in 1997. So he was at Rustenburg Estate, is where he started off in 1974 as assistant winemaker. Funny story, he actually got the job because he knew how to scuba dive, and their farm dam was clogged up with frogs. So he was the only guy in the area who actually knew how to get down to the bottom, clean out the dam sieve, and then in that way, when he got out of the dam, they offered him a job, which was actually quite a fun way of going about it. And he stayed there for about 20 years. Was one of the founders of the Cape Winemakers Guild. Produced the 1982 Rustenburg, which was also my sister's birth year. Which was one of the top South African wines to ever come out of the region. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to taste them. Yeah, and then in 1996, he decided to go on his own. Started up Larish. We rented a small winery in the Jonkershoek Valley. And yeah, started producing Cabernet Sauvignon from Stellenbosch. That's what he did well at that stage. And he decided to focus in. We made 3 red wines. Which is our reserve, our Cabernet, which is the wine we're tasting this evening, and our Richesse. And then we do a small touch of Chardonnay, which is also actually coming in through Boutinot. Hardly anybody knows about that stuff, but it's, yeah, kind of a little sideline passion project. But really, we very much focused on producing Stellenbosch Cabernets in 3 different styles, of which both our Cabernets are 100% Cab. We don't add Merlot, Cab Franc, or anything else. It's only the Richesse where we've actually gone to a Stellenbosch heritage blend, which has got Cabernet, Cinsault, and then the other border varieties as well. But it's the Cabernet Cinsault combination that we're really focusing on.
And I think sort of the connection between Boutinot and the Riche now, it goes back sort of 20 or so years. And for me, I've always sort of been a fan of the Riche simply because I think sort of in terms of Cabernet. And this, again, this isn't sort of a huge sort of sales pitch, but it's for me, it's arguably some of South Africa's best Cabernet, year in, year out. And in terms of Platter, the Platter Guide always rates you as one of the top Cabernet producers. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we've been very lucky with the Platter. My dad was produced Red Wine of the Year in 2000 with a 2005 reserve, and then I got that same award with the 2015 reserve. We've had 5 stars probably on about 6 or 7 occasions. So yeah, we've had a very, very good recognition and very good run with the Platter Guide since way back. But I mean, in the end of the day, for us, it's really about just working with Stellenbosch Cab. And if you're working with the right grape in the right area, then it makes it a lot easier. And Stellenbosch, if you're talking about Cabernet, Stellenbosch is really the stronghold of the varietal, well, you can probably say within Africa. And it's really, it does well in our region, and we can chat through a little bit more of the reasons as to why it actually works down here. But yeah, it's really a variety that works really well in Stellenbosch, and we love working with it.
Fantastic. So in terms of where you are, so we've mentioned Stellenbosch. So how many hectares are you working with in total, Christo?
it's kind of hard to say because I'm working with a whole lot of different producers. So I've actually got 14 producers and about 21 different vineyards that we're actually working with. In total, it's probably around 15 hectares that we bring in. So we're doing about 100 tons of fruits, which relates to about 60,000 bottles total production. But really, the way the estate, or we started it out is that, well, one, my dad was a winemaker on a winemaker's salary, so you're not going to be buying farmland in Stellenbosch on that kind of inheritance. So he took his entire life savings and he started up the business. We've now got about 1.5 hectares of our own, which we're planting with obviously Cabernet. But we've been working with the same producers for many, many years. And then there's a small component that's also flexible where we'll test out new vineyards, and we're constantly adding to the portfolio to get a kind of a selection of vineyards in the portfolio that is expressive of every region. So we've got vineyards on the Simmonsberg Mountain, Jonkershoek Valley, Upper Helderberg, Lower Helderberg are really the core of what we're doing. And then we add small dabs from the Bottleray, the Stellenbosch Kloof area, or Polkadrye Hills, and a touch from the Banghoek as well. So really looking at those different terroirs that we have in the region, harnessing the variation in soil, climate, aspect, wind direction, and even altitude. So working from 80 meters above sea level to 500 meters above sea level. And really looking at these different pockets and corners of Stellenbosch, and then trying to find vineyards, clones, sites, soils that really express that site at its best, bring it into the winery, and then we just try and work it from there softly to express what we feel is the best interpretation of that specific site.
Excellent. And tell us a little bit about your winemaking philosophy then, at Le Riche.
Yeah, so obviously we're making it very complicated from a vineyard point of view. To be working with that amount of variety of terroirs is really tricky to get into the cellar. So once we get into the winery, we follow a very, very simple and kind of traditional format as well. So we've got open top fermenters, very traditional South African open top fermenters, the same as what you'll see at Kanonkop Estate, manual pigeage or punch downs on everything we do. I've got 1 or 2 oak fermenters, so you're more typical that you'll see in Bordeaux. And then we work with some online concrete as well. So what we're basically trying to do is match the best fermenter to the best block. And obviously this all plays around tannin extraction. So different containers will give you different tannin extracts, and in that way I can work with either a high tannin block, as which I will get on the Upper Helderberg, or something that's got a little bit lower tannin, maybe some of my Simmonsberg blocks, but need a more delicate hand. I can really adapt what I'm working with in that sense. But from there, everything simple fermentation, extended maceration if need be, especially on the reserve blocks. And then from there it goes to barrel, natural malolactic, and then 2 years of aging, unfined into bottle, and that's about it. So nothing fancy in that sense. Only work with French oak barrels, all 225. But yeah, very much more traditional open top manual punch downs, which is really where we feel we can control the extract and tannin management the best.
And for this level of wine, what percentage is new oak?
So yeah, sitting about 27% new oak on this, and probably going to about 35% second full, and then the rest will be third and fourth full components. So the oaking regime on our Cabernet is different from the reserve. So with the reserve, we'll be looking at anything between 60 to 100% new oak. That really depends on the vintage as well as the final blend that we're working with. Where on the Cabernet, we're usually between 20 to 40% new oak, once again, dependent on the vintage. And the reason being is that the two Cabernets are two stylistic interpretations of Stellenbosch. With the reserve, we're looking for, it's usually coming in with vineyards that are our oldest. They are the most concentrated, usually the most tannic as well, and they're wines that need to be aged. So cellar them, give them 10, 15 years of aging, and that's really where they're coming to their own. Where with a Cabernet, we're looking for a wine, or specifically a Cabernet, that is accessible when it's young, so much more user-friendly in the restaurant industry, but it will give you 10 years of aging. So usually we do recommend still at this wine 8 to 12 years, and it's going to be at its best. But if you taste the wine this evening at 2018, you'll feel the tannins are soft, they're approachable, and it's got that lovely supple roundness. So that's why the oaking regime will change out, where the bigger tannin, we need more new oak to help and harness and just knit that tannin together. Where with the lighter tannin structure of the standard Cabernet, we work with less new oak so that the oak doesn't start overpowering the wine. And in the end, you want to taste fruit. You don't want to be tasting barrels.
Okay, question in about, do you vinify the parcels separately?
Yeah, very much so. So we put a great deal of effort into understanding every vineyard and every parcel that we're busy working with. So for example, the reserve portion we worked with today, from coming in from the Jonkershoek Valley, is we actually, I think the farmer's going to kill me, but we selected vine by vine as to which components of that vineyard we actually wanted. The vineyard is really old. We're seeing some leaf roll virus starting to move in. So we literally selected the healthy vines from the unhealthy vines, and in very detailed selection. Then that will come in, it's going into its own tank parcel. From there, we'll go into barrel separately. And for the first year, each of those different components, so every site, every block, every soil, and even the blocks where we break a bigger block up into 2 different ferments, they will all stay separate. And then after a year, my dad and my sister and I will sit down and we'll actually taste through all the different components that we have in the cellar. So components that we had kind of the idea that we want to be going to the reserve with this component, or going towards the Cabernet with another component. We'll taste through, see all the different elements that we have, and then we'll start blending up the reserve, the Cabernet, and the Richesse, each one with a different stylistic kind of approach or softness or tannin structure that's sitting behind those wines. And then after a year, we blend back to barrel, and then for another year, and then we go to bottle from there.
This, again, sort of a fantastic example of South African Cabernet. I think, sort of, you mentioned briefly there, sort of fan leaf roll. And, I think sort of there are many South African wines that sort of have this, dare I say, sort of greenness, this dare I say, sort of vegetal character, as your lights go out there in Stellenbosch.
Yeah, sorry, that's sunset is happening much faster than I was expecting.
For me, this doesn't. I think this is a really good expression of South African Cabernet. I think it's pure, it's expressive, it's everything that you would want in a South African Cabernet. How much life would you see in this particular wine?
How much life? I would definitely give this a good 8 to 10 years of aging. 2018, we worked with very concentrated fruit. You'll find this wine as well has got a very powerful and concentrated palate. And that's, you've got to consider 2018 is the last of 4 years of drought that we had. Those 4 years did deliver the 2015 and 2017 vintage, which has been described as probably some of the best we've done in the last 20 years. And it was also the year where you would have seen this in the UK press, where everybody said, don't go to Cape Town because we don't have any water left. And that is literally what was the case in the region. So the vineyards were under stress. We had sufficient water left, and luckily we could see the difference between the good and the bad quality vineyards really showed up in this year, and we were able to select and really make sure we were only getting in from vineyards that were healthy. But you can taste that concentration element coming through in the wine, but it's still got the freshness and it's got a very good acidity. And I think that's one of the major components and advantages within Stellenbosch is if you get it right, you won't have that greenness. And I think we've come in leaps and bounds over the last 10 years in general in Stellenbosch Cabernet in that component. And then secondly, looking at the acidity, you'll always have this lovely freshness covered by good fruit with a touch of savoriness sitting behind it. And that's really for me what Cabernet expression is all about. I don't want big fruit bombs sitting there. That's easy to get throughout the world, but it doesn't make for good fruit-friendly wines. And it's working within that balance between obviously your tannin, acidity, and fruit, and not getting that too sweet structure on the wines.
No, it's beautiful, and sort of for me, I think this I know I'm going to take this bottle home with me this evening, and I'm probably going to call in at the supermarket on the way home and pick up a steak. And I think, you know, this would be absolutely fantastic with meat. But I think it also work really well with, you know, cheeses. I think it's one of those wines that's actually quite universal. Obviously, you know, a lamb chop would be amazing. But I think for vegetarians, any sort of rustic, wholesome pulses, beans, that style of cuisine, I think would be absolutely amazing. So I realise the lights have gone out on you. And I also realise that your workers are very hungry and are probably desperate for a beer. So Christo, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Nigel.
Brilliant wines, absolutely superb wines. For me, as I say, one arguably the best expression of Cabernet from South Africa. So thank you very much for joining us. I'll let you go and grab your beer. Hopefully you get some more electric and some more light on in the winery so that you can see everybody. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Nigel. It's a pleasure. Yeah, thanks for tasting and thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you. So if you could kindly mute yourself and turn your video off, Christo, and then I'm going to ask Amanda, who is joining us from Portugal, to switch everything on. So there you go. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, Nigel. Nice to speak
Thanks
to you.
for being with us. You've been with us for the last 2 hours now. So sincerely, many thanks. So I mentioned before, you're in Portugal. I know you've got the Douro in the background there, but is it a Porto that you actually live in?
Yes, yeah, I'm actually, so yes, I am in northern Portugal. I've got this background, which is Quinta behind me, Quinta do Retiro Novo, but it's a virtual background and I'm just outside the city of Porto at the moment. So, and it's a beautiful sunny day. The sun is going down, but it's been 18 degrees here and lovely and warm. So it feels like spring's arrived.
I'm so jealous. It's, you know, I'm in Manchester and it always rains in Manchester. So, you know. So, Crone, can you tell us a little bit about Crone, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the background of the history of the company. So the company was founded in 1865 by two young Norwegian cousins by the name of Wiese and Crone. So that was, well, over 150 years ago. And during these years, the firm built up this excellent reputation for its old cask aged ports, and in particular, the culetas. I mean, we also do a 10-year-old, but really it's the culetas that the firm is so well known for. And culetas, of course, are single harvest tawnies. Back in 2013, Crone was acquired by the Fladgate Partnership, and it sits very comfortably alongside our other premium port houses. So we have Taylor's, Fonseca and Croft, and we were absolutely delighted to add another premium port house to the group.
And it's unusual, isn't it, Amanda, in the fact that sort of, you know, there's a huge British influence in Porto, and there's a huge Portuguese influence, of course, but Crone, whereabouts, so you said Norwegian?
Norwegian origins, yes, and it then moved through, it descended through the families. The Visa side actually sold out. It then moved into a Portuguese family. It's always remained in private hands and family hands, whereas in fact some of the other port houses moved over to some of the multinationals, but then came back into family ownership. In fact, Crone didn't and stayed very much in family ownership, and now belongs to the Fladgate Partnership, which is again a family-owned and family-managed group. So it fits in very well and very much with our in our portfolio. It sits very well.
Fantastic. Now, you also mentioned that this is a colheita. Can you tell us what does colheita mean?
Right, yeah, good question. So what is a colheita? A colheita is a tawny port. It's an aged tawny port, the difference being that it's from a single year. So it has to age for a minimum of 7 years in wood. Ours, all of the Crone colleitas age for 10 years, a minimum of 10 years before we release them. They do all their aging in wood, and they are bottled just before they leave our cellars. So some of them, this one here is just over 15 years old. Others can stay in wood for 20, 30, 40 years, depending on the year of it. So just to tell you a little bit about how we decide, how we make it a cuvée. That's actually decided after the first winter, after the harvest. So the harvest happens in September. The wines spend one winter in the Douro Valley, and then in January, February, and March we do the blind tastings in the tasting room. So that's what's happening now. We're just coming to the end of that process of tasting all of those wines from last year's harvest. And it's at this point we decide what's going to happen to that wine. Is it going to become a late bottle vintage, or is it going to become a ruby, or is it going to become an older tawny? And we decide at that moment what it's going to be. So an older tawny, it's let's say a 10 or a 20-year-old. A 20-year-old is not a wine that's left there for another 10 years. After 10 years, it is decided at the beginning, this wine has the potential to age for 20 years or 30 years. And with Krone, we have this slightly different fact in that we do single harvest, so they're from a single year, and they will age in wood, and then they are ready to drink when they're bottled. So they will not age further in bottle.
Okay.
So they won't benefit from being kept longer. Obviously, they will last for a while once they've been bottled. But really, they are ready to drink. So there's no benefit in holding onto a cuvée for another 5 or 10 years after it's been bottled.
Now, you mentioned that sort of Krone, they certainly are highly regarded for their collators, but you do make other styles as well.
We do, yes. So we have a reserve ruby, we have a late bottle vintage. Late bottle vintage is interesting because it's an unfiltered LBV. So normally the sort of standard LBV is a filtered LBV, and therefore ready to drink. And the unfiltered LBV is bottled and then ages a little bit further in bottle. So we will age it a little bit longer in our cellars before releasing that. And of course, for the consumer, again, if you don't open it straight away, it's fine. It will continue to improve a little.
And in terms of the vineyards that you're working with, what size of hectares do you have access to?
Well, the Douro Valley, it works a little bit like the Champagne region in that we have our own properties, and yet we also buy in grapes. But we buy in grapes from farmers we work with throughout the year, throughout the viticultural year, and have worked with often for many generations. So the Krone Quinta is Quinta do Retiro Novo, which is located on the Rio Torto, which is one of the tributaries of the Douro Valley, of the Douro River. It lies very much in the heart of the Douro Valley in the Cima Corvo region. And this is really where there's the greatest concentration of quality vineyards. So if you're driving around that area, you'll see all these well-known names, all sort of sitting right next to one another on relatively small plots of land. And of course, it's all very mountainous as well. So the Douro Valley, for those that have been there, it flows, the river flows quite low, rarely more than 100 meters above sea level, in fact. And then either side of it, you've got these steep mountains with all the vineyards cut into them. In fact, you can see that in my background here. Some of these handmade old dry stone terraces that were built back in the 18th and 19th century.
For those that haven't been, you really must go. Sort of the audience that we are sharing the session with today, that they're all sort of sommeliers, and for me, when I went to the Douro Valley, I was blown away. It's just the most beautiful of all wine regions in the whole world, and I mean that. It's so super impressive, and of course, everything is hand harvested or has to be hand harvested. In terms of then the number of grape varieties that you're working with, now, I know that's a tough question because there are so many. There are, I think that from memory, there's something like about 56 authorized varieties that
absolutely. Yes, very many. I suppose we probably work with about 10 of the most important grape varieties to us. We have in recent years been bringing in some of the older ones so as not to lose those. The three most important ones that you will find everywhere are Touriga Nacional, Touriga Francesa, and Tinta Roriz. But then you've got Tinta Barroca, Tinta Cão, Tinta Amarela, and there's absolutely masses of them. What you have in the Douro Valley is because it's so mountainous, you end up with all these microclimates. So you've got all these different aspects. So you've got sort of, you know, even you've got north facing, south facing, east facing. So what you can do is you can adapt your planting to the right microclimate. So the microclimates are not only within the whole valley, but even within a single estate. But what it means is that we're probably a region that's very well prepared for climate change, really, because we can adapt our planting to the particular location. So if we have a grape variety that likes the north-facing aspect, then we can use that. If we have something that needs a lot of sunshine, nearer, closer to the river where it's warmer, again, we can do that. So it's challenging, but actually there's a lot we can work with. And of course, the soil is schistous. The whole valley is schistous and granite. So very dry, very little rainfall in the Douro Valley. And what happens is you have these sort of vertical sort of cracks in the rock, and the roots will grow down through those searching for water. There's no irrigation in the valley for the port vines. But what happens is you end up with very low yields, very small concentrated grapes, you know, just absolutely wonderful flavour, but of course very, very low yields.
So just to go back, and I apologise if you may have already answered this. Do you produce a colheita every single year then?
No, not necessarily. No, not necessarily. We don't have every single year.
Okay. There's a question just dropped in there.
Of course, I should say, sorry, let me just say, we will be making the wines, but we won't necessarily release it as a colheita. So it may end up being blended back into something else.
Okay, just a quick question then from Laura Patry. How was the 1979 vintage?
Ooh, 1979. I'm not sure if, that's quite a while ago, so I'm not sure if there was a colheita from 1979.
I know 19 year, and I know obviously 77 the Jubilee year, and 75 was a vintage year. I'm not sure about 79. I think a lot of
79 was not a vintage year. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear. I'd say 79 was not. We had 75, 77, and 80. Those were the vintage years around that. Whether a colheita was made, because a colheita, of course, doesn't have to be in a vintage year. It's an age 20 from a single year. Whether there was a 79 made, I'm not sure.
Sure. Okay. Maybe it was a birth year.
It must be somebody asking that.
Okay. Now, in terms of, I have mentioned it a few times now that sort of you are certainly known for your colheitas, and so many awards every year. I think sort of here at Boutinot, sort of when we enter the wines on your behalf, they always come back with golds, occasionally silvers, but never less than silvers. A lot of sort of trophy awards. They are absolutely fantastic. How long will the wines last once they've been opened?
To be absolutely perfect and not lose any quality, really, it depends how old it is, but we're talking specifically today, for instance, about the 2005, and I would say probably about 4 or 5 weeks, and that wine will still be in absolute perfect condition once you've opened the bottle. After that, obviously, it's going to lose a little bit of the freshness, a little bit of the fruit there, but will still continue to be a very nice wine. Incidentally,
Laura's actually come back. She's got a bottle of the Crone 1979 Colheita.
Great. So, yes, so now we've had our question answered.
Laura, once you've tasted it, you can let us know, please, if that's all right.
We definitely no longer have it, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would know about it.
There you go. So, loads of different food matches with this. What are your favourite food matches for this, Amanda?
So, Food matches, I would say either we go cheese route and we're looking at creamy cheeses, so go for a brie or a camembert or something like that. And you get that sort of wonderful saltiness from the cheese contrasting with this richness of the wine. Or we could go for desserts, and then we could say something like a creme brulee, and you've got these wonderful caramel notes in here, and dried fruits there, so creme brulee or an almond tart. And there's a very typical Portuguese dessert, which is a lovely almond tart, which is baked in the oven, you have these sort of roasted almonds on the top, and that's just a perfect match with a colheita. And the other thing is, in Portugal, you would serve it slightly chilled. So, and the other thing you have to remember is that these wines will always warm up in the glass. So if in doubt, just chill it, because otherwise you just get a lot of alcohol on the nose. So chill it down. It's always going to warm up in the glass. And of course, it's absolutely brilliant for summer drinking. So, you know, chill that, and it's lovely. And I just saw André Martins, who I know, mentioning the comment of pastel de nata, which is a Portuguese custard tart, which is absolutely delicious. And that would be fantastic with this.
Remy from Le Gavroche is suggesting cheddar rolled in Spanish or Italian ham, and then warmed in the oven as an aperitif.
Again, you've got that saltiness coming through with that, you see, so the saltiness contrasting with the richness of the wine. It's just perfect.
And I also sort of moving away from sort of the food element, absolutely fantastic with cigars for any of you people out there that enjoy a cigar. I think, you know, sort of a nice sort of dare I say sort of medium sort of flavored cigar with this would be absolutely superb.
Yeah.
And you know, sort of for me, I just, you know, I really do enjoy this, and for me, it's just, you know, it's the perfect digestif as well. I think it's you know, one of those wines. Yes, it's amazing with sort of chocolate. We talked about with sort of blue cheeses and creamy cheeses. I think it will go absolutely fantastically well. But it's the finish on this is just so long, and it's just it's a lovely glass of wine. So sincerely, many thanks. Excellent. Amanda, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for staying on there. Let me just see if there's any quick questions for you.
There's a cigar recommendation.
We're getting some cigar recommendations. Monte Cristo #2 for that particular Colheita 2005. But yeah, superb. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for again for your passion and your commitments. And hopefully, you know, like many of the other producers that have joined us today, once we're all through this and you come back into the UK market, I'll happily go and introduce you to some of the fantastic restaurants that have joined us today. So thank you, Amanda.
I look forward to it, and we look forward to welcoming everyone in Portugal when we're all allowed to travel again.
Superb. If you could kindly turn your video off, that'd be much appreciated, and mute yourself. And that is all of the wines. 6 amazing wines from 6 lovely producers. I think, you know, sort of, you know, I've said this before, you know, this is my little sort of sales pitch about sort of Boutinot, in the fact that, you know, we do obviously make a lot of wines ourselves. You know, we do have our own estates, but we've got some absolutely fantastic agencies. And once again, I think all of these wines demonstrate that fact that we've got some lovely wines in our portfolio. Sincerely, many thanks to each and every one of you for joining us today. We have gone a little bit longer than we should have with regards to time, but you have 6 amazing wines hopefully open in front of you. You can sort of think about your dinner options this evening, or if you've caravanned the wines, I'm sure they'll certainly last for the next few weeks or so. But sincerely, many thanks once again for taking the time this afternoon to taste with us. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we will be through this bizarre situation that we're in sooner rather than later now. None of us expected expected the situation to go as long as it has done. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. We do sincerely value your business at Boutinot, and we look forward to working with you. So on behalf of myself, on behalf of Scott, Bea, and also Sophie, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. I wish you all well, and I very much look forward to seeing you all soon. So take care. Thank you.